Hi everyone, good morning and good evening to everyone. Thanks for joining today's Vlocity Online Training demo from svtechsoft. Our trainer is Dilip. He will take over for today's demo. So Dilip, are you in the call?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kishore.
Yeah, hi. Okay. Let me give a host to you, Dilip. You can start for today's session.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Dilip, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, you can start, Dilip.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Just give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
Hello, hi guys. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, I'll be trying to give you a little idea of what exactly is Velocity in Salesforce and what is it doing in Salesforce and all of this. So yeah, before we get started, I have overall experience of around 9 years, and I have training experience of around 2 years. So and I'm with svtechsoft from almost 1.5 years. So yeah, so in Velocity, I have overall project experience of around 5+ years, and all my relevant experience has been in Salesforce. And yeah, I'll try to provide you as much details as possible in this 1 hour session, and we'll try to discuss what exactly is Velocity and all of that. All right. So yeah. So Velocity is basically now it's been acquired by Salesforce because of the how much business it is doing. Once Velocity has come into picture, it has started a revolution called something called industry specific cloud. The reason why it is more important nowadays because every application that you generally create in any using any kind of software, be it a cloud or be it some legacy system or any kind of cloud, maybe Microsoft, Google, whatever it is. So what clients are preferring is basically they don't want you to do build a application which is so much code heavy, because the more amount of code you keep on using, and as you go ahead, you end up building an application which is a lot of code heavy application, which in turn becomes a problematic for the client, because they have to do a lot of optimization in the later point of time when they want to make sure that everything, eventually this whole thing becomes slowed down because of the amount of code we use, all of that. So nowadays everyone is looking forward to something. It's more of a configuration thing. So basically you can build an application using more of a configuration and less of coding, because that results in a better performing applications, right? Because if someone is already providing certain functionalities which are predefined, right? For example, if you are in Salesforce, you have if condition, which is now being given as a formula field, right? You can write a formula in using a formula field, and yeah, it becomes pretty much simple, right? Like that, there are so many formulas or some other the other way which is being provided now, which makes it simple for us, right? Basically, we don't have to end up using a piece of code to just getting some kind of data or executing some kind of logic, right? So yeah, that's where the whole programming or all the applications or all the clients are moving forward, and that's where Velocity comes into picture. What it is doing is basically it is normalizing something called as industry specific domains, which basically means that we'll have to dig a little deeper into Velocity to understand what exactly Velocity is doing. So yeah, let's try to move ahead and see what things we can learn using Velocity. So as part of today's agenda, we are going to discuss about what is Velocity and how it works and what is it doing in Salesforce. And whenever you keep hearing a term called Velocity, you always see something, listen to hear something called industry specific cloud. So we'll try to understand that and what are advantages and understand certain components of Velocity, and yeah, a few other various things that are provided by Velocity, right? Yeah. Before heading into all of that, right? So usually in any cloud, not just specific to Salesforce, any cloud usually provides three different kinds of layers for us. Right? The first layer is IaaS, which is basically provides infrastructure as a service. Right? And they basically provide you all the things that are basically that requires physical storage, like some you need some huge hard disk kind of thing where you can store a lot of amount of data, and servers, all networks, all of these things which require actual physical presence, right? They provide that to you and you can utilize them via online, right? You can have a username, password, and you can try to access that. That is one way of using cloud computing. And the next layer is basically PaaS, platform as a service, right? So basically this is a layer where which basically provides you certain predefined functionalities so that you don't have to start building your code right from the scratch, right? And the more familiar term, which is basically SaaS. So you all would have heard, if you're a Salesforce resource or a cloud computing person, then you would have heard something called SaaS, which is nothing but software as a service, which is all we generally work on. We all developers or architects work on. Basically, we have an application. Using that, we'll build some kind of software application to the end customer, which can be accessed just through internet. If you just have any internet connection, mobile, or some device through which you can access the internet, that's all. Username and password is required. You can access your application anywhere without installing any software. That basically is what we all understand as a cloud computing. Basically, you don't have to install or you don't have to maintain it. You don't have to deal with any of the complex stuff because it's all being dealt by someone else. And all you just have to do is just try to access it. All right. So that's one thing. So we generally in Salesforce use SaaS capability, but Velocity is using this PaaS capability of Salesforce. Right? They uses they use this Salesforce as a platform. They basically use Salesforce and build a platform on top of Salesforce, which we developers in turn use it and provide a software software to our end customer, so they can just start using it. Here, the velocity layer or the Tableau, or you would have heard Viva CRM, or you would have heard CPQ. There are so many applications that are using Salesforce and building something on top of Salesforce, and which in turn we are using it to build some kind of application. Basically, what they are doing here is they're introducing one more layer in between. They're trying to add certain predefined functionalities. To say, in a practical example, for example, nowadays voice search is pretty much common everywhere, right? You go to Google or you go to any music app or anything, there is always that voice symbol where you can do the voice search. That is now become a pretty standard functionality. So what these guys do is they generalize these kind of standard functionalities so that you as a developer don't have to build those features right from the scratch, right? So that's what Velocity also is doing here. So they introduce one more layer here in between Salesforce and the end customer, which makes sure that you as a developer don't have to create a lot of business logic or data model. Right? Maybe you have to bother about the user interface which you create, or certain extreme levels of business logics. Rest all you will get via a package of Salesforce. So that's what Velocity does here. All right. So the next thing we are going to see is basically you hear or you always hear something called industry cloud nowadays in Salesforce. That whole concept is brought into Salesforce by Velocity. What exactly is that? So Velocity, when they started building their entire application back in like around 2015s and 16s. So what they tried to did was, so let's take a practical example now. Like we all know this, like how these drug companies work, right? Which provide medicines to all of these diseases and viruses and all, right? Because of this COVID situation, we are all a little bit of aware of that. So let's take that example over here, right? For example, let's take pharma industry, and now let's take a look at it. Let's take the business process of that pharma industry. So what happens in general when some kind of virus or disease comes? All these drug companies try to build a specific drug which deals with the virus, right, or disease, whatever it is. So they perform lots of clinical trials. Then once it works out, they usually in general, what happens in foreign countries like US, UK, or anywhere in other than Asian countries, most of the Asian countries, is basically these pharmaceutical companies, these drug companies usually send their representatives, sales representatives, to the doctors and medical institutions like hospitals and all others. They try to explain the details about the drug, right? The pros and cons of it, any side effects, all these things, and they provide certain samples. And if they like that, they start prescribing that specific company's drug to the all the customers. So that's how the drug companies sales go up. So now if you see, the business process of all these companies are same. Maybe the applications, the softwares may differ, but the ultimate business process is always same. So you don't see any change in that. Back in like some 20 years back, that was still the same process. 30 years after, still the business process is same. Maybe you'll get new features. Nowadays you'll see online delivery of all the medicines. That is a new feature to already existing business process. So that's what Velocity has identified here in certain industries, and they started implementing something called industry specific cloud, right? So they understand the business process of a specific industry, and they try to create a data model, a business logic which is common across all these clients or companies in this specific industry, and they try to generalize it. So you don't have to build certain things from the scratch. They're already pre-built by them. You can just start using them. So that's the term called as industry specific cloud. So Velocity right now has identified something around 6 clouds: communications, media, entertainment, energy, utilities, insurance, health, government. They're expanding it more. I think around 15, maybe in few days we may get new releases and we may get few more things. But yeah, on a whole, what Velocity is doing here is basically trying to build platform so that we don't have to creating an application right from the scratch for any client, right? So that's what industry specific cloud is. So this is what Velocity is doing right now, right? Let's look at a few of the customers that are already using Velocity, right? So if they're in CMT, which is nothing but communications, media, and telecom, you can see all these clients are already using Velocity, right? Vodafone has recently started using Velocity, right? Verizon is one of the first clients of Velocity. British Telecom has been using Velocity from last 1 year. Rogers Communication, which is one of the famous clients of telecom companies of Canada, is using Velocity from a long time. Just similarly, that like that, we have other industries where Velocity is a prominent. I mean, Velocity has generalized certain things, and so many clients are actually being attracted to it. So much so that from the time Velocity Salesforce has acquired Velocity in 2020, I think 2 years back, its business actually has started growing more because earlier Salesforce business became almost stagnant in 2018 and 19 because of a lot of customers are already using Salesforce or some other kind of cloud platform, right? So they don't have any reason to move, and Velocity has provided that kind of upgrade facility to Salesforce in these specific domains, right? So what exactly are advantages of using Velocity, which are actually attracting all these clients to spend in more and more income, I mean more and more uh, amount on this using the new application to go for an upgrade, right? So first of all, they provide you industry specific data model, which basically uses the standard Salesforce data model. Like you all know about the opportunities, accounts, users, order objects, all these standard objects. Using certain objects of specific to each of the industries, they have built a data model around all of that, right? So the I've been into almost 5 or 6 different Velocity projects, especially in telecom. 95% of the data model is almost same, just depending on the additional features required by the clients. Some may want some new kind of features, some may want a different kind of feature. Based on that, that 5% variable is there. Otherwise 90 to 95% of the data model is similar, because Velocity is providing that with basically, if you speak in technical terms, what Velocity does is it uses a lot of standard Salesforce features like objects, relationships, fields, Apex classes, VF pages, lightning components, all of these things to build a package which, after you buy a license with Velocity, you'll be able to download that and start using with the Salesforce application, which brings in a lot of changes into your application, using which you can build your own custom application. So, so that first thing, which is one of the most prominent feature that everyone is getting attracted to Velocity, is basically they provide industry specific data model. They have generalized or streamlined certain processes. So you don't have to spend in additional bucks to create certain features because they're already pre-built, right? And the second thing is Velocity provides certain components which are basically can be used as a replacement to your existing customization components like Apex classes or VF pages or something, because Velocity provides a kind of a replacement kind of thing which can be which can be used to execute similar kind of functionality with which you usually do in Salesforce using configuration, right? For example, you want to build some kind of complex logic, you usually go for a Apex class, but you can pretty much build at least 80% of that what you do in Apex class using configuration. How good is that? Because so it's like when you build a custom application, each developer tends to write the code in their own way, right? Some may use this try-catch flag, some may not use, some may use different standards of coding, some may use different else. So it all makes a lot of headache, brings a lot of headache at a later point of time. So if we generalize all of those things, how good is that? How simple it becomes? So that's what Velocity does, right? You can build a lot of things which you usually need to use coding using configuration in Velocity. You can build complex logics and functionalities in Velocity much more easier and much more faster way, right? And trust me, integration becomes so easy. When I was a Salesforce earlier in my Salesforce days, I always used to think as integration as a separate thing, which used to be a complex thing. When someone says that integration, they know integration, I used to think like, okay, it's something big. But now with Velocity, it's like it's a 2 minutes job to integrate with other systems. It just becomes, you don't have to write any Apex. Whatever you do with Apex code, Velocity already has done that. You just have to pass in certain parameters. That's all, and it takes care of the job. For example, you want to like usually if you want to execute some logic based on a if condition, right? If condition is pretty much standard, right? You pass in a condition. If it is true, you execute something. If it is false, you execute something. So what Velocity has done here is it built a logic from their side. All you have to is the rest, required parameters, like what is the condition, what is the value true, value false, just like your formula field. And with the whole lot of features provided by Velocity, you can build a complex logic the same way in which you build Apex class, but through configuration when you install Velocity package, right? And in Velocity, we generally, I would say 99% of the times we only use JSON. You know how JSON is basically, which is one of the easiest to understand, also with faster processing, and which is a very lightweight language actually. So, yep, this all makes sure that it helps in Velocity to execute everything in a faster and easier way to build, right? So now looking at certain out of the box features provided by Velocity is, this training is going to be especially uh, in telecom domain, right? So we are going to concentrate majoritarily on the telecom side. So yeah, one of the major thing you would always find in telecom, not just in telecom, usually in generally in any e-commerce platform, is something called there are two different concepts called order capture and order management. Even if you look at Amazon, Flipkart, any e-commerce platform for that matter, not just telecom sites, there are two different parts. Order capture, which helps you in getting the information from the customer, to deal with the order. Like for example, you log into Amazon, you place an order, and you pick an address, you do the payment, and you will get it delivered to the customer, right? So in this process, from the time you will log into the website, and or from some anonymous user logs into comes into the website and signs up, right, till he makes a payment, that whole process is called order capture. And Velocity makes sure that it becomes much more simpler by using these certain configurable components. Usually you use a lightning component or LWC component, or some VF pages, something like that, to build your UI. But Velocity introduces certain components which makes it much more simple, right? So basically, yeah, whatever you build in your Apex code, you can do most of the thing using declarative approach, right? If you remember, like long time Salesforce used to publicize themselves as like 60% configuration, and only 40% of code. But that never really is applicable, because we have all been into Salesforce projects, and we know how complex it all gets, right? In every Salesforce application, it's almost like uh, we end up creating so much of complex code. The clients eventually have to spend a lot of money again to optimize that code, right? To avoid all that conflict, Velocity introduces these declarative approach components to build most, at least you cannot say like 100%, but at least 80% of the logics can be built using configuration. Right? Then again, something called order management. Like it's like you place an order in Amazon, their job is not yet done, right? They have to get the product delivered to you, right? It involves a lot of backend execution that needs to happen, especially in telecom, because you will always buy in telecom domain. Majorly you buy a SIM card or mobile plans, so that most of the execution should happen in the backend. So that's where order management comes into picture, which is one of the major topic in all of the e-commerce platforms, which Velocity has actually revolutionized. You can say it's one of the robust and dynamic feature provided by Velocity. Like here also again, 90% of the logic can be achieved through configuration using two components or two engines called orchestration and decomposition, which helps in making sure that you fulfill the order of a particular customer. See, Salesforce is not anymore just a simple CRM application where you always store database, which acts like a backend application. It's much more than that now. It is trying to evolve much bigger, right? They are trying to deal with much more complex things now. That's why there are so many clouds which you are seeing now. And that's what Velocity is trying to making sure that it all streamlines many of the things. All right. Then again, there is one more feature called Velocity's Enterprise Catalog or EPC, which is basically, for example, you log into Amazon, you see millions of products in that, which are neatly categorized, basically, and which are neatly priced and everything. So that basically requires a lot of back-end stuff, right? If you go to a restaurant, you see a menu card, like you see all those items properly categorized, and all of the items are, neatly priced, and they all have a proper menu card, like the catalog. So that's what one of the additional features of Velocity, which helps you in build a proper product catalog. As I said earlier, Salesforce is not just any more a backend application. You can do a lot of things. Maybe, yeah, you can go for a third-party UI, or you can try to achieve with certain Velocity components or LWC or Lightning components, whatever it is. But the backend or all the remaining logics can be executed through Velocity. And one of that again is Velocity's enterprise catalog, which helps you in creating a product catalog, which is much more advanced. And again, if you have that kind of advanced and complex catalog, you also need complex pricing. So Velocity again customized actual Salesforce CPQ to build something called Velocity CPQ, which is specific to telecom and energy utilities domain. Right? With basically whatever, I mean, for example, you log into Amazon, you buy mobile phone. If you scroll down a little bit, it shows you certain products, like along with the mobile phone, you can also buy a screen guard, you can also buy a back cover, and all of that together it costs you certain amount, right? Maybe if you buy all those three things together, you may get it for a discount, right? Or some kind of offer, something, right, like that. So all those kind of requirements are already pre-built. Just do the configuration and it works for you. You don't have to write a code. Okay? So that's what Velocity did. It executes a lot of backend. It created a complex structure in the backend, which makes sure that your life is much more simple. Okay? And another thing which Velocity does is something called digital commerce and card-based APIs. I mean, this term would be familiar to someone who already worked in telecom or e-commerce, or yeah, even in Salesforce, these are there. Basically, there are certain APIs pre-built provided by Velocity, which helps you in reducing your even more manual effort. It's like, for example, you go to Amazon, apply a certain discount. Any platform applying a discount is pretty much simple. You apply 10-20% discount, it slashes off 20% of the price, right? There is nothing too big there. So it's a very simple logic. So Velocity does that for you, and you just have to call an API and pass in certain parameters like order number, promotion ID, something like that, and it takes care of the job. So many APIs like that and functionalities like that, which are already pre-built, which we can start using. And again, yeah, as I said earlier, industry specific data models. So I mean, trust me, usually whenever a project starts, I mean, all the architects must be knowing this. Whenever a project starts, actually before the development starts, at least 3 to 6 months of the time goes in deciding on the whole data model, actually, right? Because the data model is the key there, and that is already pre-built by Velocity. It almost saved you 3 to 6 months of time there, right? So now moving on, other than these out of the box functionalities, coming back to this order capture part, Velocity provides you certain components which are basically divided into two parts: interaction tools and data tools. Right? Yep. Interaction tools is basically nothing but Velocity Pro. There is something called OmniScript. Interaction tools, the name itself says that they are UI components. You can build UI using these components, right? OmniScripts are basically, like you can create a complex business flow. Certain examples which I can give you right now is Verizon is using this. You can just Google Verizon's Visible. Visible is a subsidiary of Verizon. You can just Google it, you will get to know it. Or M1 Telecom, which is a Singapore-based telecom client, or Rogers
Sir,
Telecom. Yep. Yeah.
to practice velocity, we have to pay any money to Salesforce, or it is free? We can practice.
It is not an open source like Salesforce. You cannot get access just like that. So yeah, we'll have to pay, but as part of training, we'll provide you a, practice org.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
For example, like outside means how much we have to pay for velocity or org?
You will have to buy a Salesforce license and Velocity license. There is no other way around.
Okay.
It's pretty much closed source. You cannot, buy any practice sessions or orgs separately. You have to buy the, whole licensing. And someone pinged how many months it will be available training org. It will be, we'll provide you for at least 3 months minimum. Yeah, we'll see based on that later on. Right? Yeah. Coming back. So OmniScripts again. So as I said, you usually build your UI components. Maybe you rely on third-party sites. Right? There are so many third-party UI who depend on React.js, so many other things, which ensures you build a UI application. Or sometimes you rely on Salesforce itself, where you can use communities, and on top of that you can build Lightning components, LWC components, Visual Force components, and place in that. Right? Just like that, there is Velocity bringing in a new component called OmniScripts, which is 100% configurable. You can just on the right hand side, you can see this choose your number. How do you want to receive SIM card? Right? That screen is actually built on Velocity. If you log into M1 website, just Google M1 site and M1 Telecom or Visible, you will be able to see this. Right? Basically, they're built on OmniScript, and you can see they are built in OmniScript, and most of them are achievable through configuration. Right? OmniScripts are basically UI components that are like for like replacement of your VF pages, lighting components, or LWC. Of course, to add this coloring, styling, and all of that, you have to use that UI code. Other than that, pretty much of the UI logic you can build using OmniScripts. Right? Next, coming to these cards. Basically, cards are pretty much now used for in every telecom client. You need energy utilities or telecom clients. You need uh, customer care agents. Right? So basically, these cards provide you a 360-degree view of a customer. You can build a complex screen which can display a lot of information from lots of Salesforce objects in a single screen. You need usually to build this kind of complex screen like this, right? You pretty much have to do a lot of coding. So you can avoid all of that by using Velocity simple configuration. Right? And much more to this. Especially my favorite part is this data tools, because it's like, for example, let's say in general, let's take Amazon example itself. I want to go and search for Samsung Galaxy mobiles, right? So in the backend, as a coder, I have to write some kind of programming which fetches me all the data related to that particular filter called Samsung Galaxy mobiles. Right? Simple. In case of Velocity, use data after extract. Configurable item, just define the object, define the filters and everything. It fetches you all the data in JSON format. You don't even have to worry about the conversion. It takes care of it. Right? Now again, let's say I chose everything and I want to place an order in Amazon. right?
Sir, we need any Apex basics and Java to learn Velocity.
You need basic Salesforce admin.
Okay, okay.
I mean, just to know what is what in Salesforce is enough. I mean, I won't say blindly you can just choose Velocity, but yeah, have some knowledge on Salesforce, then you can start looking into Velocity.
Yeah, I completed my training in Salesforce development and admin.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking that like I'm feeling very difficulty. So just I'm stuck in that someone suggested me to go with Velocity. So
Right.
here, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's what. So using the help of Salesforce admin, Velocity does a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
you almost work like an admin, but yeah, it's like you work on certain business logics, you build certain UI components, you build a lot of backend stuff, but still it all feels like an admin work and also development work because you build logics as well as you act like an admin because most of the things are configurable.
Sir, how is your experience before Salesforce development and now Velocity? Because you worked on both sides.
Right. We'll get back to that part maybe at the end of the session because yeah, we're
Okay,
trying kind of interrupting everyone.
okay,
All
okay,
right.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah. We'll definitely come back to that point at the end of the session. All right. Right. Coming back again. So let's say I placed an order in Amazon. So whenever I'm trying to give an example of Amazon, don't just get confused. The reason why I'm giving example of Amazon is, as I said in the starting, Salesforce is not just an application which can be just simply used for a CRM application where some users just specific to a company use it to maintain the data of a particular client. No, that is not Salesforce anymore because every other cloud is improving. So that's why Salesforce is also trying to push forward, and that's why they are trying to invest so much more and more into Velocity, right? Salesforce has moved ahead. That's why you are seeing Lightning is also now old news. LWC has come into picture. Much more complex clouds are coming to picture. The reason is you can build lots of complex stuff using Salesforce, not just a CRM application which you build to be used by certain users of a company or client. No, that is not Salesforce anymore. You can use it to build complex both UI, backend, and everything like end-to-end functionality in Salesforce itself. Like let's say that's the reason I keep giving Amazon's example. You can build that kind of front end also to deal with all the kind of backend. All right. So yep. Again, when I in the data tools,
Sorry,
yeah,
hello. Actually,
yeah.
in this totally configuration or development will be there.
You can say that, yeah, as I said, 80% of the time you are going to use, configuration, and you can prefer to work only on configuration in case of Velocity. It's not like in Salesforce, they are, if you generally try to join a new company, they are going to ask you your experience related to coding and all. But if you are into Velocity, you don't have to worry about it. You have to know the concepts of Velocity. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Darling? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So like that. So that's why I keep giving examples of Amazon because you are actually going to try and build end-to-end application using Salesforce and Velocity. So that's why I tell you just to go through the websites like Visible, Rogers, Verizon, British Telecom. They're all trying. Vodafone, not it is not gone live yet, but yeah, maybe soon they are going to go live. I mean, it may take at least 1 year at least. So yeah, so they're already all using Velocity. So they are using certain companies are using front end also in Velocity. Certain are using only, front end some other, rest everything in Velocity. So that's the example which I'm trying to give. So let's say in Amazon, as a user, I pick let's say some mobile and I place an order. Okay? So when I'm placing an order, I have to create an order record in the backend. So usually to do that, I'll usually have to write a code again to create a new order record, choose all the details and as per the user given details. Instead, we are going to simply use something called getter after load, right? Which again takes the data, you configure that, and it pushes all the data into a specific object. And there is something called integration procedure, which is almost whatever you can build using Apex class, using code, can be built in integration procedures pretty much through configuration. Like all the for loops you want to try, all the if blocks, or all the try catch, everything, like literally whatever you do in your Apex can be dealt with Velocity's integration procedures. Not, I mean, not 100%. There are certain complexities where you may not be able to achieve through configuration. There you may have to go for the code, but yeah, most of the times you can rely on these integration procedures. Like that, for everything, there is a particular component provided by Velocity which can be used. And I always keep saying one thing: more than these, the clients, majority of the clients are trying to come to Velocity because of this order management, EPC, and Velocity CPQ part. All right. Together, all of these things are making the client's life much more simple and easier, and they can build a very advanced application in a much less time with much less budget, and that's why they are all trying to go to Velocity. So we, as part of our training, are going to cover uh, all these things in this, which you are in this seeing in the screen, all these Velocity out of the box features and these Velocity components, right? So we are going to concentrate on energy utilities and telecom domain. We are in our training, we are going to explain about the practical scenarios which usually face in the telecom or energy utilities clients, and we are going to try and compare with that and try to understand the components and everything that are provided by Velocity.
Are we going to discuss some part of product modeling as well? How a product is modeled? Yeah.
We are going to discuss predominantly about the data model, because data model is pretty much standard provided by Velocity. Product model depends on the clients. Like some may prefer a different kind of product modeling and all. Yeah, we are anyway going to have a brief idea on that. Anyway, when we discuss about the EPC part of Velocity, that's the whole point of Velocity actually. Velocity is EPC, so we are anyway going to cover that. But yeah, predominantly we are going to make sure that we understand the data model. Right? Yeah, Bharat, you have a question?
Sir, my situation is like before coming to Salesforce, I thought that there is less coding. Like I entered into Salesforce and completed 5 months. So I'm feeling little much difficulty that how I can face in real time. So I'm very struggling so much. Like is Velocity can feel me happy? How is it, sir?
Yep. Yeah, that's where actually that's when I actually said that. That's actually what the point I wanted to raise. See, when everyone learns Salesforce, they we all keep hearing something called 60% of configuration, 40% of customization. But yeah, that's actually never true, because yeah, whatever Salesforce configuration that is provided, that is pretty much done at the initial part of the building an application to a customer. Once you build a basic structure, you always have to rely on the code and everything. So that's where Velocity comes into picture. It makes life much more easier by ensuring that they provide these configurable components, right? So for example, you get a requirement to build an API, right? You usually have to write an Apex class and build a wrapper class, all of that stuff. So you can always use an integration procedure, which is a configurable component, instead of using Apex class. So that's what Velocity does. So that's why it makes sure that 80% of the things are achieved through configuration, because even the business logics can be built using configuration. And what actually they are doing is, for example, you want to make an API call to, let's say, MuleSoft. You want to, invoke an API of MuleSoft and you want to get some data. Right? So there is a pretty much standard way in which you write an Apex class. You give the endpoint, authorization details, all of this stuff. So if that is pretty much standard, why not make it a generalized item? So that's what Vlocity has done. It created a simple component where you can build all of that through configuration. So it's like, instead of writing a code, they have already written the code, you pass in the parameters. You want to execute an if for loop, let's say. In for loop, pretty much it's like standard, like you pass a list, you pass a variable, and you pass an object, and you pass all the fields details on which you want to iterate. Same thing. So they build everything in the back end. They build, it's all pre-built. Just what data has to go into which field and which is the object and which is the list, you define. So that's what they do. They build everything. They make you just configure it by giving certain properties. Right? You want to extract some data from an object. Right? You usually write an Apex class, and in that you write an SOQL statement. SOQL statement is pretty much standard, right? You write select statement and choose all the fields you want and choose an object you want, write a filter conditions and all of that. If that is same thing, why not generalize it? So that's when again Vlocity comes into picture, and they created something called data wrapper extract. Simply, it's just you choose an object, you choose what filter conditions you want, you choose what all the fields you want to extract. That's same thing. What you do is using code. So that's what Vlocity has done. And most of the clients who actually use Vlocity wants you to build components first, try it out everything in Vlocity. Maybe things don't work, then they want you to go for the code. Otherwise, they want you to go with Vlocity itself, Vlocity components itself.
Right? Sir, in Vlocity, which language is used, sir, for coding?
Yep, it is. That's what it is, built on Salesforce. So it's like what, for example, you have something called governor limits in Salesforce. Vlocity has to respect that because they're ultimately built on Salesforce. They are using all Salesforce objects, Apex class, and everything. So
okay, sir.
Whatever is base for Salesforce is base for Vlocity itself. So
okay.
Yeah, but thing is that they have done the coding for you.
Okay.
Yeah, hello. This is Jay here. I have a question. So does Vlocity interact with the LWC components in a real-time project?
What Vlocity has done is, see, for UI customization, usually, I just showed you one example here, this Omni scripts. You can, even in UI, you have to build certain logics. For example, you choose, certain option in a particular field, and based on that, you want to display some data. So those logics you can build using Omni script. But ultimately, it's like, for example, you take Facebook. They have everything in blue theme. If you take Zomato, they have everything in red theme. If you take some other client, they have orange, some other one, some other different color. So how do you bring in all those changes? That's when you need some kind of code. So in Vlocity, you can actually use Angular JavaScript code, which usually you'll have certain, other developers. I mean, they're entirely Angular JavaScript, so you'll have someone to deal with that. But now what they're trying to do is Salesforce is, after Vlocity has been acquired by Salesforce, they want to move away from AngularJS, and they're trying to do all the things that are being achieved by AngularJS through LWC. Maybe in future you may require LWC. I won't say that. I mean, just for our purpose, I won't say that, okay, you don't have to use code at all. Maybe in future you definitely may need LWC. I mean, that is the way going forward. Yep, definitely they'll bring more and more features which can be implemented through configuration. But yes, LWC may be required in a couple of years, not yet now. For at least 2 to 3 years, it's not going to be there. But yeah, it is going to be required maybe a later point of time. And one additional thing which I want to clear out is, so those who are actually confused with
1 minute.
Sorry.
Actually, now in Vlocity, there is in Omniscape, we didn't record AngularJS or JavaScript, HTML.
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Your voice is breaking.
I mean, this time, hello, can you hear me? Actually, this time, Omniscapes, we don't require AngularJS and HTML, these all the things.
Right now, yeah, you don't require all those things. You, as a Salesforce Velocity developer, have to know how the remaining components are going to work. For example, Omni scripts, cards, like data after extract, all these things, and these features. You are not going to work on the Angular JavaScript part right now in Velocity. So the reason why they want to move away from Angular JavaScript is, yeah, it is not native to Salesforce, right? So you will always get that lag. So to avoid that, to attract more and more clients, they are experimenting on LWC right now. It is not yet stabilized. They have implemented it. It's not stabilized. Maybe, yeah, it's like just like how Lightning was very new back in 2014, right? Until at least 2016, it was not yet stabilized. So it's pretty much like that right now. Nobody's starting to use LWC as of now, but yeah, it will be the way forward. Right now, yeah, you don't have to worry about Angular JavaScript part.
Yeah, hi, this is Kiran. Are you going to cover product relationships, entity filters, and advanced rules as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Hi Dilip. So, a 15 years experience guy, is it a right thing to do this course, Vlocity? Who has no. Yeah.
Right. See, what Velocity pushes you to do is, rather than becoming a developer, you will become more of an architect kind of guy, because yeah, it's like this Velocity may not be permanent. Some other new feature technology comes up, but the domain is not going to change, right? The telecom domain has been like that from last so many years, and is going to be like that. Maybe certain new features come in, but yeah, telecom domain is going to work in that same exact way. So if you get comfortable with Velocity, you will get good idea on the domain rather than the technology. I mean, technology you will anyway get as you work, but if you try to learn about the domain, it is just the best way to go forward, because yeah, Velocity, even if it goes maybe in 2-3 years, some other technology comes up. I mean, there are so many people. I mean, some of my colleagues who are architects right now are actually pure Siebel guys who has no idea about Salesforce, still very comfortable with Velocity, because the domain is still same. The way telecom is behaving is always same. So yeah, if you are experienced guy, you have to look forward in that way.
Yeah, but when I looked into the out of the box functionalities and Omni scripts and data raptors, so this particular course is mainly designed for people who got maybe like in 2-3 years of experience or something like that. But if I want to learn this and become an architect to just to get into that role, so will this helpful, or is it a base step and then on top of it, do I need to do something else?
Yeah, it will definitely. I would say this is not advanced level. This is going to be from basic to medium. But yeah, we are anyway going to cover this order management, EPC, CPQ, which are anyway going to help you going to that step forward.
So how many months of experience will the training be equivalent to?
Experience, I would say it totally depends on practice, because see, it is configuration. When you hear, it all is like a cakewalk, but when you actually practice, it makes a lot of difference. So yeah, some guys who actually have followed the training and regularly practice, they have immediately got placed and everything. But it totally depends on you. If you definitely follow the training and regularly follow everything, within 2-3 months, I can with assurance say that you can clear interviews and get a job. I would say, yeah, in practical, you can get at least some kind of 6 months to 8 months of exposure.
Okay. So will you be covering use cases related to telecommunication industry?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. That's one of the main agenda for us.
I'm actually a lead consultant and I'm looking forward to learn Vlocity. So just wanted to check like if this training will be suitable or not.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to see, for example, like as I said, like you have a requirement where your client wants, let's say, I have a mobile phone I want to sell. Along with mobile phone, I want to sell a SIM card. I mean, that's how much, how pretty much telecom requirements are going to be. I want to sell a mobile phone along with a SIM card and a mobile plan. So you want to provide some kind of discount, or you want to, make this as a bundle. You have certain standard functionalities which are already pre-built by Vlocity, which makes it a general thing. It's not a pretty extraordinary feature. It's an ordinary feature. So yeah, you will be able to get knowledge on all these certain things which are standard in telecom domain.
And will you be covering like end-to-end process, deployments and all included?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there is a separate tool to deploy certain Vlocity components, all of that. We'll cover all that. And yeah, right from the start until the end, we are going to cover practical scenarios. We'll break it down to simple requirements and try to understand the components.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll have a different environments, is it?
Yes, yeah.
So everybody will get an dev environment or dev arc, and then there may be some test environment like that.
No. Sorry, not that. You are all going to have a common environment because Salesforce is very strict about Vlocity. It's like to get one environment itself is very tough. They are very much closed. It's like they have completely closed access even to their. I mean, you search for some doubt in Vlocity, you don't get any thing in Google. So they are very much closed. We'll preview we'll give you one common environment and one common success community, which is specifically there for Vlocity. Just like how Salesforce success community is there, which is pretty much open, but Vlocity's one is closed one. We'll provide you that access.
Okay, so from your consultancy or something like that, you will procure it, right?
Yes, in this Vlocity CPQ also includes.
Yes, Vlocity CPQ is included.
So Dilip, during this training, so to practice these use cases, so are you going to give any credentials for each students like that, or like how we can practice in Trailhead like that, how Salesforce is providing?
Yeah. Salesforce is, I mean, just for the initial part where I told you about these components, right? There are certain trailheads, and you will get all the, I mean, these components, you'll get all the data from trailheads. I'll give you all that data. But yeah, anyway, I'll give you a different, org access for all of you, which is common for, working on the remaining parts of Vlocity, which are specific to Vlocity. And I'll give you certain exercise guides, which are provided by Vlocity themselves, which will help you in, working on a specific requirement on each and every topic.
Okay, so you mean to say that core functionality to practice this order management functionalities of Vlocity, so we can't do it through Trailhead, right?
No, you cannot do it Trailhead.
Okay, so for this part, you will be providing us a common credential.
Right.
And one more question. So I don't have any experience in Salesforce, but I have a background for order management functionality in CBEL. Okay, so will it be helpful for my career and I can easily catch up this product? That's what I want to understand.
Right, you can, but I would definitely recommend you to first get knowledge on Salesforce admin, because that is the basic. I mean, Vlocity is built on Salesforce, so you need to have that basic knowledge. Then, yeah, everything becomes very easy for you to understand.
So how extensive, it's like how expertise should be there in the Salesforce admin part? Like if you get
You
this
just need to know what
trail ahead.
exactly. I mean, when I let's say I talk about some data model of velocity. Like let's say like there are certain tables or objects which are involved in order management. You should at least be knowing what is an object, what is a field. You should understand what are relationships, how a formula field. I mean, the basic stuff with which you can have everything is provided by Velocity, but at least when I explain, you should be able to understand it, right? So yeah, you need to have that basic level of understanding of Salesforce admin.
So if you get practice with the trailhead admin basics, that is enough, right? That's what I understood.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay. And is this velocity pricing matrix also covered? It's this out of box feature is available or like just only pricing?
Yeah, there is an out-of-box feature available also, as well as you can implement certain custom things using this Velocity CPQ.
Okay. So what I understood, Dilip, so this velocity out of box only like order related objects only will be available, right? So what about the pre-sales part, like opportunity, everything should be integrated with the SFDC or like those objects also will be available?
Those have to be integrated with Salesforce, but yeah, basically what Velocity covers is from the time a user tries to create an order till you fulfill the order, whatever is required, including the product catalog, all the objects related to product catalog, pricing, and all the objects related to pricing, all the business logics, order management, and all of these things are provided by Velocity.
So you mean to say the code part is also not covered here? I mean,
not yet. No. Yeah, not covered.
Okay. Only purely this is order management.
Orders, yeah.
And line items.
Right from creating the order till fulfilling the order.
Okay.
All these are covered in
that should come
35
part
days.
of CPQ, right?
Sorry?
All these are covered in 35 days?
Yeah. In our training, we are going to cover each and every topic, and I'll try to provide as many examples as possible and provide certain exercise guides with which you can practice. If you have any doubts, and we can clarify all of that. So yeah, based on how interactive you are, it extends. Sometimes some classes finish in 25 days and some classes which go up to 45 days. It depends totally.
Okay. Depends on batch.
Yeah.
Dilip, what is the difference between Omni Studio and Velocity?
Yeah, Omni Studio is something which is Salesforce themselves are trying to bring into Salesforce, but yeah, I mean, which becomes a default maybe a lot later on, maybe 3 to 4 years. But as of now, it is an integrated part of Velocity. That is what which I'm talking about when I say these Velocity components. All these which you see on my screen currently, right? Interaction tools and data tools. This together is called as Omni Studio development, which is right now an integral part of Velocity, along with order management, EPC, CPQ, and remaining parts. Right?
Okay.
But yeah, the reason why Salesforce is separating this is because as I said, that's the way going forward. Nobody wants you to sit and code for 24 hours. Instead, they want everything to be pre-built. You can just drag and drop and quickly build a simple application as fast as possible. So that's why Omni Studio may be separated later. That's why they are providing it in the trailheads itself. So you can get a trial org for these things even now also in the trailheads.
So, okay, still Velocity and Omni Studio, both are different, right?
Well, I mean, Omni Studio is coming from Velocity. So Velocity guys are the ones who actually worked on Omni Studio part. It used to be called as Velocity Development earlier. Once Salesforce has acquired, they just renamed it as Omni Studio.
Okay, so their Salesforce is trying to like kind of change terminology and each and everything in coming future.
Yeah, right.
Got it. Thanks.
Excuse me, Dilip.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? This is Arpita.
Yes,
can you tell me how many, what is the market scenario about the Velocity specific jobs? in India and in abroad?
Right now, yeah, US, I mean, Northern America is pretty much, already using Velocity. So they are using Velocity from a long time. I think from around 5 years now. But now it is moving newly to, European countries. Like so many clients are, which European and South American and Australian countries are trying to use these velocity in telecom especially. So there is a lot of scope. You may get a lot of European projects like British Telecom, Vodafone. Vodafone Europe is implementing, and a lot of local country Europe like Portuguese Telecom, and there are so many companies that are trying to use velocity right now in Europe. So you may get most of the projects from Europe.
Sir, what's the scope in US regarding velocity? Hello. What's the scope of velocity in America and Canada?
US and Canada, you mostly get a well-settled projects because Verizon is using AT&T is already using a little part of velocity, and this what was that? Rogers Telecom is already using Tellers. There are so many companies which have already used Velocity and are using Velocity from a long time. Like they're already well settled projects. You may get into enhancement related stuff into those projects. European projects mostly are all in Velocity, which are all development projects.
So we get a placement support also at the end of this session.
I mean, I think Kishore will be able to help with that. So they have a specific. I mean, I'm just a trainer here. They have whole mechanism to deal with all these placements and everything. I think there. I've seen so many posts from them, like who are ready to hire both for freelance and also for a regular placement. So you can approach to Kishore regarding that.
Sir, what the packages we can expect for one velocity, sir? Because I know about Salesforce coming to velocity, it's the first time. So,
can you repeat the question? Sorry.
I'm saying that what the packages we can expect for velocity, sir? Like for 2 years or 1 year experience.
Depends. I mean, if you say 2 years, like if I can't say like that, but if you, in general, if you are a Salesforce trying to look a job in Salesforce, if let's say you're getting 6 lakhs package, if you know velocity, then you can go up to 8.5. I mean, there's that much difference for sure.
Just one thing, I think people have already asked this question, but still I want to. So looks like this training particularly targets the developer community. So the one who is from functional background, someone like business analyst or consultant, they don't want to actually configure into Velocity or Salesforce, but they just want to capture requirements for Velocity or solutionizing, preparing an HLPD. That kind of a knowledge is required. A developer, just a guidance to developer, business analyst need to provide, or consultant need to provide. So can we expect that kind of knowledge from this training?
What I mean, I definitely am more going to concentrate on the developer side because we get a lot of developer requirements, and I will always try to ensure that I'll try to relate as much as possible with the current scenario requirements. Like for example, there is any let's say we are talking about a CPQ, a velocity CPQ. So I'm going to relate what are the kinds of current ways which we are trying to price in telecom industry right now, like how we are dealing with all the pricing in various kinds of projects and how we are implementing all of that. So I'll be explaining in that level as well as the how to configure each and every component. So it depends on how you want to take it.
So the one who has like people are there in, although they are good in order management, order capturing part, but with the one who are, but they need to talk to technical architects, right? So you need velocity, not at least in-depth knowledge, but some
Mhm.
terms we need to use
Right,
while talking to them, right?
right,
So
right.
not actual configuration again,
Right.
focusing on to that part, not actual configuration, but need to understand that. A telecom journey,
Mhm.
yeah, understand. Apart from that, what will be the takeaway for functional architects or functional designers from this
Uh,
training?
you can understand how, especially velocity components are going to work in
Mhm.
telecom perspective. That is one thing. And you can actually do a lot of functional solutioning using velocity. I understand. So if you are a technical architect, you have to provide like using what components you have to build and how you are going to do. But using for functional architects, you'll at least be able to name what functionalities you want to use, which are pre-built by velocity. I think we'll be able to cover that much definitely.
All right, all right, yeah, okay. And one similar questions. Although you
Uh-huh.
did say that Salesforce admin knowledge is still required, but
Mhm.
will you be covering at least one or two classes, those who are zero Salesforce knowledge, just to cover this training, so that they don't need to spend another couple of hours in Salesforce, those who have zero knowledge, but yeah, they are experienced professionals, so we can pick up this. But if you add one or two classes more from Salesforce perspective.
Actually, we have separate training programs in svtech itself. Or I also recommend you, if you need that very basic knowledge, you can always go for the trailheads or the Salesforce trailheads, or there are a lot of YouTube channels. So you can just, if you want to get a basic idea, you can definitely go through that. The reason why I'm saying this is we don't have to waste. Not waste actually. We don't need to spend that much time on that because it's everywhere. It's almost from 20 years. It's been there 22 years. So it's there in Google everywhere. So you can get a basic idea of it just anywhere. So whenever what I'll make sure is whenever, for example, we are talking about, let's say, data after extract, I will explain you what is the basic way in which you usually work in Salesforce, and I'll try to compare it with Vlocity component. So because I understand many of the people I usually get in my training is basically they are from CBIL. They have not much idea in Salesforce. So I'll try to relate it to that level. So at least have the basic idea of somewhere, like you have many sources available. So definitely can get any from there anywhere. So that's what I recommend.
And wherever we are saying integration procedure, so we are going to write that integration procedures from the beginning.
Right. We are going to create it. It's basically a configurable component, drag and drop. But it works like an OPEX class where you need programming skills. But in case of integration procedure, you don't need, but you can achieve the same target.
All right. Okay.
And Santosh has pinged that when will the training start? We are going to decide the date based on the participants. So you can speak with Kishore on that. You can approach with anything related to training course content. I can help you with anything other than that. Just speak with Kishore. He'll be able to help you with that. I'll try to display his number. And one thing I'll make sure is I want to tell, and not make sure, I want to tell is, see, I'm also a guy who is completely from, electronics background. I didn't have any knowledge on coding or anything. I started with Salesforce and I just didn't know how to, work with it and everything. But once I started working on Velocity, I was able to relate more with the coding. It's like you can see to write an SQL query, you need to have that basic knowledge on writing that select statement and all. I didn't even have that much knowledge, but once I started working on Velocity, these various components, then you can actually relate it, because whatever you're doing there with code, you can actually write it with configuration and execute it and see the preview. And they'll in the there Velocity has the concept of debug log there itself, so you can see what Velocity has run on behalf of you. So you will get to know, okay, this is how you are actually writing the code in background. So you can relate it more and you can start understanding the code in a little better perspective. I don't say that you will be able to write the code, but you can, okay, you can understand, okay, this is what is going on. Okay. Yeah, Santosh, you can see the number on my screen.
There is one question. So how about the opportunities, like the guy who has a experience in order management, like Sibel, getting into Velocity with this training? So what else is required to get an opportunity to get start with Velocity? Along with this, the certification will give, anyhow, it is an added advantage. So anything from this means the training, they will be supporting the to prepare and get completed the certification.
Yeah, I will provide you certain interview questions and all of this, but that is all, I know, back end stuff, but I will try to be as clear as possible, and I'll provide you as much as details as possible. It's like many people who came back and told me that whatever you have told in the training are there in the actual certification exam. So I'll be that clear. So certification, all of that, you pretty much don't have to worry, because you will be able to clear it very easily for sure after the training. Yeah, as far as the opportunities of job opportunities, I always recommend you to practice. It depends entirely on the practice, because yep, it's all configuration. What you hear sounds very good, but once you actually start working on, then you actually get to know the complexities. So it depends on your practice.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
How many certifications we have in Vlocity, Dilip?
As far as developer certifications, there are two. One is the Omni Studio Developer is a basic one that is recommended for everyone. You will definitely, I'll give you guarantee for that. You will be able to clear that for sure. There is one more industry specific cloud, which is CPQ related and order management related. And there are two more which are on architect level in Vlocity.
Okay.
Basically,
So
there are four.
Okay, if you want to go for the architect, then CPQ, Omni scripts, and then order management. So we need to complete these three and need to go for architect, is it?
Right. I mean, if you are looking for Velocity job right now, because there are very less people who knows Velocity, so they are only looking for one certification, which is the basic one. And if you have more, then it's well and good. Yep.
Yeah, so my profile definitely not suits with the developer, because having 15 years of experience, 16 years of experience in CDEP. So definitely it is.
Yeah, you'll have to
yeah.
maybe take the architect level. Yeah, you will be able to. I mean, the architect level is obviously is going to be a little tough. So yeah, you will at least have the basic idea of things with this training.
Architect exam is not is.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Architect certification, is it something like a review session, right? Or is it an exam?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, architect, is it something we need to go with some project case and review with the other architects?
Related. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So with this training, then that will be helpful, right? If you get more practice, then we can complete this CPQ, order management, and architect certification, right? We can do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing I'm sure is, like, in the training we are going to cover the JSON part as well, and also all the Omni Studio part. So with that, you can definitely, it's going to be very easy to clear the basic Salesforce certification, Velocity certification, which is right now is needed for every guy who attends Velocity interviews. Other than that, like, there are 3 more certifications. For that, you will definitely get all the basics. Based on your practice, you'll be able to clear it.
Okay, so CPQ and order management is purely functional, and what I understood, Omni Studios, and these are all like a business logic kind of thing, right? Business Omni Studios, I think it is UI part.
Omni Studio is basically both UI is and also backend stuff. The CPQ, EPC, and order management are not just functional. It's, I mean, you will get to know. I mean, basically, it's
Okay,
like
okay.
they made sure that it all looks functional because the coding is done on their behalf. It's like you just have to configure certain things, and it becomes very simple. Like, for example, you place an order in Amazon. Any product you pick, each product is going to have a different process in the backend. All of that can be configured pretty easily in Vlocity.
Okay, so that fulfillment, everything will be again integrated with the other background, means back offices.
Right.
Correct?
I mean, in case of CBEL, what I heard from my other students is like basically it's a little. I mean, you have to integrate with other systems for orchestration and decomposition. But Vlocity tries to provide everything inbuilt here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and coming to these use cases, like, are you going to give any assignments to get practice and more to get expertise? Any real time kind of assignments you'll be giving, or like how it is?
Yeah, I'm going to give you. I mean, one main, project kind of thing, which depends on you. You whenever you have time, you can build it. But that is the main goal. Like that will be the ultimate goal. Like you, after all the training is done, then you can take your time and build it. But in the meanwhile, I'll try to provide Vlocity provided exercise guides for each and every topic separately. So if for each and every topic, like for example, order management, orchestration, decomposition, EPC, CPQ, all the Omni Studio components, you have separate exercises for each of those exercise guides. So I'll provide you all of that. You can work on those things.
So those are all have to practice in the environment which you are going to provide. That's it,
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You said 30 days or like 3 months, right? That
It is
environment.
going to be 30 weekdays.
Okay, 30 weekdays. Okay.
Yeah. It may come up to 7 to 8 weeks. It'll go up to max of 2 months.
But the environment is available up to 3 months, right?
Yeah. After the training, you will. I mean, yeah, it will be available up to 6 months. Its expiration date is up to 6 months. You can use it. I mean, from the time I provide it to you, you can use it up to 6 months.
Because the project which we are going to give after a course, so that anyway goes up to 3 weeks, maybe 2-3 months, 1.5 months, and then another 3 months for project build, and then any practice sessions.
Yeah. You will have. Definitely. You will have more than sufficient time. You'll have 6 months of time to work on that org.
That org is common for all the students, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And coming to integration part, okay, so like the external application, so is it like providing by svtechsoft only, or like how it is?
I mean, you mean to say you want to
integration part, anything, yeah, anytime in the real time something. So as part of a project or something, so if you want to integrate and if you want to pass the messages, like anyhow, JSON data also will be covered, right? So
yeah, for that part, what I usually do is I have built some mock APIs which give you some kind of stagnant response. Like it's always predefined. You can either use that, or I mean, when we want to invoke some APIs, I use an example of this open weather API to just show you how to work with invoking the APIs. Basically, because in Vlocity, integration is not even a big deal. It's just a normal thing.
Okay, so MuleSoft comes into picture, right here?
Yeah.
Okay, that part is also covered here, Dilip.
Yeah, I'll try to show you the examples.
Okay.
If you want to consume any Google Open API, so I think we can do it if it is a public.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we are not going to provide, but you can if we have an access to Google API. I think that's a paid service, right? So if you have access, you can definitely invoke the Google APIs and everything.
I mean, I just took an example as a Google, but if we take any open APIs which are public. Maybe like the flight information which is a public one.
Yeah, you can do all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what in Velocity, it's like integration is not a big deal. That's what I told. Like when I started with Salesforce, it's like when someone says integration, it was like a big deal. Now it's like I mean, people don't even care in Velocity that it's not a separate concept in Velocity. It's like a standard stuff.
It is Dilip, so like for public APIs and all those things, it's easy because it never go with stringent authorizations. But if I'm enterprise applications, if I want to communicate Velocity with another enterprise application, which goes with a lot of authorizations like service accounts and all those things. So definitely that's not possible with the environment what you have. But if I want to do with that, so do we get any material? Because as you said, we cannot get Velocity material as like in Google. But how we want to go with
basically not as different as Salesforce. It's like everything you follow
I don't
in
know
Salesforce, you follow. Yeah, I mean, if those all things you will get in Google. Whatever you do in Salesforce, pretty much all the standard stuff you'll get in Google. The coding part you can avoid using Velocity. That's all. It's like instead of using a code, you will use some other component. But rest everything, if you want to make a connection with some other web, third party, all of that which is pretty much standard in Salesforce, you will get that all of that in Google. Okay, you're using Velocity, you're just trying to avoid using coding.
Yeah, maybe once we go into the session, so probably we'll talk much on that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
One more thing. So once we are comfortable this Velocity, like SVTech is going to show an opportunity for freelance projects. Anything?
Yeah, I think svtech usually does that. They have certain companies also in contact. They'll definitely able to do that. But yeah, I'm not the right person to ask that question.
Okay.
You can check with Kishore. I'm just a trainer here, so yeah, you can check with Kishore with all that. Yeah. Anyway, I usually see a lot of recommendations from him, and yeah, a lot of job opportunities from him. So yeah, it will be there definitely.
This is the number, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dilip.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Any other questions or anything you want to know?
It was a lot of informative session, Dilip. So I have attended a couple of other demos with other training institutes, but couldn't able to get much information. But whatever you have provided in last 1.5 hours, it was really informative.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Chindu. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll look forward to start the session soon. You can contact with Kishore on all the remaining details on when the training starts and how much you have to pay or job opportunities. All of that you can check with Kishore and he'll be able to provide you all the details.
Is it something can we follow on LinkedIn with you?
Yeah. You can follow me directly on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'll once we start the sessions, I'll definitely provide you all the details. So you can directly follow me there. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.